The negative population growth era in China has begun. Data released by China's National Bureau of Statistics show that the population of China has decreased for the first time in more than 60 years. China will no longer have a competitive advantage in producing items for the rest of the world if labor costs there are no longer lower than those in other nations. Because of this, the cost of your iPhones, your automobiles, and many other items will increase. Does it signal the end of the period of fast expansion and low labor costs? So, what really caused this decline, and will the effect be felt by the global economy? Let's discover. The enormous amount of China's population has always been well known. 1.41 billion people call it home. It follows that China is home to almost 1 in every 5 people on the planet. Despite significant government attempts to buck the trend, China has now started what is anticipated to be a protracted phase of population decline. A 850,000 decrease from the year before resulted in a population of just over 1.4 billion in 2022. The UN had previously predicted that the population would peak in 2031 to 32. Everything from the economy's performance to Xi Jinping's legitimacy may be significantly impacted by the continuous demographic transition. Given that China has traditionally been regarded as the world's factory, some experts contend that slowing population growth is a worldwide issue, as well as one that should concern China. So what resulted in this population decline? One-child policy. It all started when tens of thousands of barefoot doctors were trained by the government to provide healthcare in underdeveloped and rural areas following the founding of the People's Republic of China in 1949 and the end of the Civil War. The population growth rate increased from 16 per thousand in 1949 to 25 per thousand in just 5 years as the death rate fell. The first initiatives to promote family planning began in 1953 as a result of this. Yet, in the late 1960s, the population increased to nearly 800 million. In the 1970s, China was experiencing housing and food scarcity. Deng Xiaoping, the country's leader, decided to restrict most couples to having just one child in 1979. Women were coerced into having abortions, claims Human Rights Watch, in order to enforce it. Children born outside of the state plan were prohibited from obtaining their hukou, a government registration required to get some benefits. The government then permitted couples to have 2 children. 17.9 million babies were born in 2016, an increase of more than 1 million over 2015. 5 years after altering its one-child policy to permit women to have 2, the Politburo decided in 2021 to permit all couples to have a 3rd child. Family planning laws were entirely removed from a new civil code, allowing the government to completely abolish birth restrictions. But births decreased annually, reaching a low of 9.56 million in 2022, the lowest level since at least 1950. Even some authorities now provide financial aid, parental leave extensions, subsidies, and baby loans as ways to encourage couples to start families. Aging. The proportion of elderly persons in China's population is expanding. It will change how Chinese society is structured socially. What will occur next, though, is less certain. It is anticipated that China's fertility rates will continue to decrease, especially as the population ages, and there are fewer women overall who are childbearing age. Parents who are older and have longer life expectancies will need financial, emotional, and social care for longer. They frequently only have one child to fall back on. With the pressures of their employment, raising their own children, and taking care of their aging parents all at once, the children may feel even more strain as a result of this relationship. China has also created a number of supportive measures to aid in elder care, such as tax deductions, elder care leave offered in some cities, and supportive laws for the elder care service sector. Various policy measures to assist the aged care and childcare service businesses to overcome challenges was most recently published on August 29, 2022, by the National Development and Reform Commission and 12 other authorities. The policies include rent exemptions, tax and fee reductions, and the provision of financial support, all of which cut costs for providers of elder care and childcare. The effects. The widening demographic transition in China will have a significant impact on its economic expansion. The demographic dividend, or the high percentage of inhabitants who are of working age, previously drove the nation's rapid progress. China has been able to transform from an agrarian economy to an industrial civilization with greater living standards and income levels due to its labor-intensive, export-driven model over the past 40 years. China's future labor force, market potential, and rate of growth have all been cast in doubt due to its changing demographics. Will there be a labor crisis? Loss of human capital is one immediate effect of a diminishing population. Less business owners, inventors, and skilled workers will be available to drive the economy and promote future economic growth as a result. Businesses may have trouble locating the labor they need to fill demand due to the aging workforce and a shortage of younger workers brought on by the population decline. Since certain companies are more dependent on physical work than others, the declining labor force has a more significant impact on some industries than others. The industrial and construction sectors, for instance, would probably be hardest hit by this worker scarcity. A rise in labor expenses as a result of such a reduction could make it harder for Chinese businesses to compete on the global market. Although China has a big pool of employees already employed, a substantial labor shortage is not anticipated in the near future. Almost 791 million people will be working in China in 2021, according to estimates. A significant portion of the workforce is still unemployed or underemployed in some areas. In 2022, the unemployment rate in provinces like Jilin, Inner Mongolia, and Tianjin is expected to be much higher than the national average of 5.5%, according to the most recent data available. These informational pieces, when combined, imply that China could not have a severe labor shortage in the near future. Effect on global economy. The Chinese market size may decrease as a direct effect of the population decline due to a smaller market with fewer consumers. The country's economic growth may be harmed if this causes a decrease in the demand for goods and services. The age structure effect, which describes how older people are less likely to spend money than younger people, may cause consumer spending to decline in an aging society. The market size, however, is influenced by a variety of variables, including the national economy, consumer spending, and the capacity of companies to innovate and adjust to shifting market conditions. On the plus side, a declining population can boost per capita income, bring down unemployment rates, and increase the amount of disposable income, all of which support a robust domestic market. Since 2015, China's working-age population has been declining. A government spokesman predicted that by 2050, it might reach 700 million, or around 23% of the country's total population. This would be particularly problematic for China, where the labor market has historically been fiercely competitive for major players in global manufacturing like Apple and Microsoft. The government's finances may also be affected by a growing senior population and declining tax revenues, particularly in China, which has social safety net systems that are similarly underdeveloped. China's economy has increasingly integrated into the global economy since leaving its isolation in the early 1980s. It has absorbed raw materials on a scale that has never been seen before and established export dominance in thousands of markets, in hundreds of countries, largely due to a vast pool of extremely competitive labor. Automation can keep items affordable even when labor prices grow, and China is still a global manufacturing leader. The dual circulation strategy and investments in higher value-added products by the Chinese government have orientated the economy towards its domestic market. Given that China's per capita income is nearly 6 times lower than the US's, more attempts are being made to increase local demand in addition to international consumption. There is still a lot of potential for economic activity, household wealth, and domestic consumption levels to increase, even though China is not assured to eventually have a GDP per capita comparable to the US. The population of working age has been declining for years, even before the historic overall fall, and predictions indicate that by 2030, a quarter of the Chinese population will be 60 or older. In addition to the fact that there might not be enough healthy individuals to care for all those elderly people, this poses a challenge to economic progress, which has been dependent on a plentiful labor supply. The net result is that China's economy would find it difficult to surpass the US in size, and that it might lose its position as the world's most populated nation to India this year. Because of the country's aging and declining population, productivity gains will become more and more important for economic growth. Although China's growth rate may slow, it will still be a significant economy. It will continue to support global economic expansion. The degree to which China is successful in handling these transformations and resolving trade disputes will determine the impact on other economies.